All right. So, as you can see, writing a book is a very interactive thing because not only is it information gathering for specific components of the book, but it's also getting an overall bigger picture in the back of your mind or my mind. So that way, when I'm writing from a particular place, that's still in the background influencing how I'm writing. And then I can also, give you there's a word for it, where you signal what's going to happen, what you may talk about in the future. And so, like, it's not called highlights, it's called something else. When you are foreshadowing, and writing is about foreshadowing a lot of things because you can't possibly write about everything in the world. You must come from a particular place because everyone starts from somewhere. And you have to start from somewhere that people recognize and they have some relationship to. But when you foreshadow, it then alludes you to a bigger picture that most people are not aware of, and then to start being aware of. And it is an incremental process. It's not something that you just all of a sudden jump into, because the last 5 or 6 years of doing this whole Julie Juice mentality, I have become aware of a lot of things that I wouldn't have been aware of 10 years ago, especially how the earth and humans are exactly alike. The earth is the macro level human form, and the human is the micro level of the earth's form. And earth and humans have everything in their bodies and on geography. They're exactly the same. How they manifest is in a larger scale. So when you think about in your body, the one cell that has the evolution going on and it's then, speaking to other cells, it's like you're in one area having, with evolution or something going on, and it then starts working its way out. And so, yeah, I mean, this is like just, oh my gosh, there's a lot of information, but I'm going to come from a specific point of view, but I want you to see the correlations of viral operating systems and the evolution of mankind and the evolution of Earth, where we came from in the ancient world. And it was vastly different. It went through several terraforming processes, and some of it's been written in the Bible, other of it has been hidden in the Vatican, as well as coming out slowly through esoteric knowledge, or it's being shown in movies like Disney Fantasia. Watch Disney Fantasia. I mean, if you want to watch the full thing in its regular style, then buy it from YouTube. I did put a compilation that was sped up so you could kind of see all the graphics and the characters and some of the music. But there the 13 bloodlines, okay, the 13 bloodlines, they understood history because it came from a derivation like we did, but we weren't given a lot of information, just a little bit. But they came from the derivation of the Titans, which were large giants, but larger than even the giants that we know about. They were the originators of this whole earth. They terraformed things, and they passed down the information to their offspring. And who we are then derivatives of that offspring. Some of us are more aware of historical context and history than others. Others are just like compartmentalized, living in their very safe reality and the reality that was given to them ever since birth. And other people are expanding beyond the reality that was given to them and decide to question certain things and expound upon what we've been taught, what we've been told. And so, yeah, I posted the YouTube video of the Petrified Titans, that one that I don't know this guy's name, but I just found him through just going through my YouTube stuff. And he has an excellent lesson about geographical formations that look like Titans, that were petrified. How can these Titans, they were gods, how can they be petrified? Well, somebody was more powerful than even the ones that were petrified to then petrify them. How are they petrified? Well, it's what could be that powerful to petrify a huge Titan? We know the mud floods, we know about floods, we know about how we sort of know about how Earth was formed. It wasn't just volcanoes and dinosaurs. There's a lot more going on in between some of the things that we were told. And there were probably way more powerful things that caused then even the Titans to become petrified and become part of the landscape. And maybe they were sacrificed. Maybe those Titans were sacrificed to then become the landscape. And so if you watch that video of Petrified Titans and what that gentleman was talking about as far as like the red sand strata, which is like the muscle groups, the muscles, that we see if you go into some of these groups on Facebook that show different stone formations that look like orifices, female orifices, male orifices, look like animal heads, look like dolphins or elephants or turtles. I mean, it's like in plain sight, but our reality has been so snowed by fantasy, which is then the reality becomes a fantasy and the fantasy becomes a reality. And it's like everything's kind of switched up and we are in a major terraforming evolution. The grid is being upgraded. Everything's being upgraded. Okay? Your bodies are being upgraded. The pain of human suffering is now being recognized as an evolution, but you don't have to die from the evolution of pain and suffering. And so there is definitely a lot, but it's nice to have that. Whenever you're writing, you must have almost everything figured out. But you have to come from a particular place so you can keep building on stuff. And that's the hardest of all, is first learning the most basic stuff so then you can build on it. And that's called evolution. The evolution of learning is you learn from a particular place. Like that gentleman learned from the petroglyphs and the petrified stone formations, and he was showing a stone that was an Oregon that was petrified from years back. And so that's where he's coming from. Would he expound beyond what his area is? Well, he's getting money for teaching this. And so most likely he's going to stay within that area. And not a bad thing. That's what people choose to do. But that's the thing, is we're all coming from a particular place, but we can expound upon what we already know and keep building and keep building. And so that's why the JJ mentality is about first coming from a physiological standpoint, building upon that, and then increasing your knowledge and your awareness and having that in the background. So when you start taking your talents and putting them all together, now you have a huge painting that is detailed with stuff in the foreground that you want people to know about and learn about, but you still have a background knowledge, and the details in the background are what supports the foreground. And that's the art of evolution. That's the art of conveying information, is that it's not just a white background with just an idea or a graphic. Is that there are definitely layers that make up the foreground, and so that's where the whole thing with the virus is, and that's what I'm going to come from, of course. But that post on Facebook about those blood falls, holy crap, which is basically iron coming out of the Arctic, and when exposed to the oxygen, it turns red. That's like blood. Holy crap. I mean, that's like crazy. It was called the blood falls. The mysterious phenomena has intrigued scientists for over a century. This 5-story blood red waterfall pours very slowly out of Taylor Glacier in Antarctica, McMurdo Dry Valleys. The blood effects occurs when the glacier's salty, iron-rich seeps, see, salty, we need salt in our blood, seeps through the fissures and falls into Lake Bonny. When it comes into contact with the air, it oxidizes and gets its blood red color. Connect with nature. I'm telling you, I'm posting this stuff on my business page, and I'm getting a lot more views on some of this stuff because now people are making the connection that Earth is no different than humans. The Earth is immortal. Humans can be immortal if they understand how to fluctuate. Now we're given all the opportunity to build ourselves up and evolve or destroy ourselves. And you see the deterioration of mankind, or some of the mankind, where they just have no hope. They think the Earth is being destroyed. They think there's no hope for anything. And you can't even try to stop them from thinking that way, because that's them taking themselves out of the genetic line. That's them basically sacrificing themselves so that we can enjoy the balance of Earth and the inhabitants of Earth, so we don't have too many people taking up more resources than it's able to regenerate. And so it's I'm telling you, I'm completely fascinated by just everything that I've been exposed to. And so, you know, and then of course the last couple of days dealing with my own symptoms and dealing with all of the upgrades to the new viruses. We're going to see new viruses come in the future, or ones that we know about that have been expounded upon and upgraded. And we know not everyone's going to survive them, but we just do what we do. And, you know, my dog is doing fine, and I'm up hella early. And so in this last couple of days, hung out with my husband and enjoyed his company and figured out how to battle the cold here. And we know it's not the end. There's definitely going to be more cold and more extreme weather in the future, and be prepared. Evolution, just like when you first start the JJ mentality, evolution is highly energetic. And you must be able to know that you can survive. That's the main thing. Okay, is that you can survive the evolution of not only mankind, but the evolution of this earth. Because you're also seeing that they're taking the old DNA from like dinosaurs, and they're gonna make new animals in the future. You can terraform the atmosphere to make it maybe heavier, not heavier. I mean, there's so many things that you can do to create a different atmosphere, a different geological formation, different life forms out here. There's so much you could do, and so nothing is out of the question. It's all viral operating systems that's supported by an atmospheric background. That's it. Okay? And so if it's all it is viral operating systems, then you know that, yeah, Fantasia, there have been Pegasuses and unicorns and centaurs and all the things that we saw, like, you know, in these cartoons and in the Lord of the Rings. The dark side of the Lord of the Rings is when, I'm sure, Babylon fell and they were going to terraform, and also there were probably evil beasts out there, yes, that wanted to kill humanity, and then there was the fighters for humanity. I mean, it's everything that we know about today, you know, has been done before. Anything that we can think of as something is new has been done before. Nothing is new under the sun. Okay, so then you look at all the fantasy, like watching Lord of the Rings, or watching the Clash of the Titans, and watching Greek mythology and Greek history and the Epic of Gilgamesh and all these different stories that we think is just like fantasy. Oh no, it's a freaking reality. The mushrooms, like from the Smurfs, and all the cartoons that we watched as kids thinking that it was all just, you know, fantasy. Oh no, it's a reality from a different time. Yes, no, we are in a very different simulation, I guess. But there were other simulations that look like the movies. Where do you think these creators got this information? It wasn't like one day they woke up and they had all this information. No, this was information that was taught to them, esoteric knowledge passed down, because I was brought into America, adopted by a family. They taught me what they wanted me to know about my society and what they wanted me to know, and they definitely kept information from me, because I didn't know how much my mom and dad made at the time. I didn't know a lot of things because it was none of my business. So imagine how much more is being kept from you if your parents can keep their salaries secret from you. So imagine what the government and what the different leaders in the religious societies are keeping from the vast population. And so then you realize that, okay, nobody just gets this information from a vacuum. It's happened before, it's been taught, and then people expound upon it. And of course, anything is, pigs can fly, yes. Will they fly? Do they have to be aerodynamic? There's got to be something that is allowing that to happen. And you can have a pig that may not be so heavy, but has lighter this and maybe a heavier atmosphere. I mean, anything can happen. It just depends upon the backdrop of the atmosphere and the aerodynamics and the physiological makeup of a pig, of a horse, of anything. And so we know that the atmosphere has changed. We know there was giant trees. We know, so viral operating systems can be programmed. That's the thing. That's really the main point. I'm getting to the main point because I don't even know. I'm developing the main point right now. Is that if we can develop, or if viral operating systems can create the fantasy world with then the atmosphere supporting those types of physiological creatures that can fly, that can do all these different things, then imagine in this world what is possible for a person, so as long as the infrastructure supports it and also the atmosphere supports it. And so why were the trees taken out? Some people say the oxygen in the atmosphere was less. Well, the reason why the oxygen in the atmosphere is less because you don't have giant trees. But what created the giant trees was the fact that oxygen gave, oxygen and carbon dioxide and all that stuff. Trees give off oxygen. They live off of carbon dioxide. There's some CO2. The organisms, it's a whole cycle. It's all photosynthesis and all of that, right? We learned about that in school. And so when you don't have giant trees, then you're not going to have a super oxygen rich environment. And so so at some point, so much CO2, what you think so much CO2 would then allow the giant trees? Well, then there's also the greenhouse gases. The whole, what is it? Methane, gases and all that can overwhelm an atmosphere. And so I'm sure we can recreate what happened in the past, but did they have as many people? Was there so much industry to then stop that? We look at China, we look at all the different real aggressive regimes like North Korea and some other countries with so many people, and there's so much human suffering. It's not going to elicit like a fantasy-like world. We have so many people on this earth that are so intolerant, that are also kind of caveman-like, intolerant, but living from baser instincts, where it is just, kill or be killed, hunting and gathering all the time, and lack of a civilized way of doing things. And so that's what these movies are saying, whether it's the Vampire Diaries or it's The Walking Dead. Like, we apologize for creating so many intolerant people in this world. We apologize for creating so many monsters in our society. We were doing a lot of human experimentation. Now we're like, okay, we need to clean up this earth. This earth has so many people that don't get evolution and are destructive to not only themselves, but people around them. And so we're in the process of cleaning it up, but we can't do what we did in World War II or other times. Now we have to allow something like a virus. And this is why they did so much human experimentation, to figure out how to give people choices, but also guide their perception. Because I'm sorry, if everybody understood the JJ mentality, we'd have so many people going through the pains. We probably wouldn't have an infrastructure because everyone would be home evolving and not wanting to go and work at a place that they know they're going to die in or die from. And so the infrastructure of rewarding people for going to work, where they, dazzle them with money or baubles or things like that, is then rewarding people for being the sacrificial lambs when the viruses do become more exponentially aggressive. And so be very, count your blessings that you understand this information. Count your lucky stars to understand this information. So anyways, I'm just like, wow. So what did I write? The ancient world, humans' extreme desire to belong. human suffering, viral operating system can all be changed and predetermined based upon the atmosphere. We are actively being upgraded, terraformed, no different than the Garden of Eden, with a lush place with so many fantasy-like creatures. And the earth was terraformed again with a different reality. I did a little talk to text. Mud floods, petrified life, petroglyphs, is red rock strata, the missiles of the earth. You know, I mean, this is all just stuff that you just need to see in the background when you read my information. The power elite, let's see, here we go. Then you see how Earth is no different than human body, with iron flows of red water coming out of the different places like the Antarctica. Trees are like our lungs, and everything's about balance, and the Earth is immortal, and it keeps changing and evolving, no different than a human. I mean, the power elite, who are descendants from the Titans, okay, and we are also the derivative of the Titans, will never allow Earth to be completely destroyed by humanity. What makes them the power elite? Because they have knowledge that was passed down from generation to generation. Now, a few people with open minds can take on this information, and they're not distracted by the arguments given to you by the politicians, religious leaders, and scientific dogmas. And so, yeah, Disney is telling us, yes, there's dark sides to everything, and there's lighter sides, and it's the balance of both. Okay, so most people are caught up in the dark side of Disney, but then there's the other side of it, and you have to balance it both. But most people focus on the dark side of it. And I'm going to tell you guys, if you want to understand human history, you have to understand both sides, because that's the whole Fantasia. Fantasia was, and I saw the movie theaters back in the 80s, but it was made in 1940. Okay, that is all of human history and Earth history, and it shows you the different times and the terraforming and the different operating systems. And yeah, so you know that the last part of Fantasia, which is the Devil's Mountain, is kind of like what we're seeing, you know, in different countries that are practicing just human exploitation. This whole Olympics, I don't watch the Olympics anymore, because it is about torturing the body to perform beyond what usual bodies can perform, and they go through massive amounts of pressure and, yes, abuse. And so it's kind of interesting where the Olympics are being held. It doesn't surprise me where the Olympics are being held, because that's probably the foundation of a lot, well, not foundation, but that's probably where a lot of the mind control stuff, I don't say originated, but that's where a lot of it's being practiced. I don't want to get too political, because I don't want anyone coming after me, but I'll just say this: it's no surprise that the Olympics are being held over there in Asia. No surprise at all. I'm not going to watch it. I don't even watch the Olympics, even if it's held here or anywhere else. I'm done with all of that. Okay. I think that, yes, evolution is necessary when the viruses change and the atmosphere changes and the economy changes, but I don't believe in purposely causing the body to go through so much torture in order to perform for endorsements and for people's entertainment. I don't think torture should be anyone's entertainment. Yes, the outcome is gorgeous. I mean, like, you know, I had fun watching the ice skaters. People make money off of that. Well, that's what caused people to let go of morals and values, is because of the money and the fame and all and the celebrity that goes along with torturing yourself. And that's what Hollywood goes through too. Well, I mean, I don't want to support that. Though Hollywood, I watch Hollywood, but Hollywood also gives me an idea of what it is that we have went through as a human history, as a geographical history. And so that then gives me ideas on how I must just endure the evolution, the painful evolution of adapting to 7 billion to 6.5 billion people being recycled back, wailing out there in pain, going through their shit. And then I have to keep upgrading to all the viruses that they're releasing. Because when people die, when animals die, when things die, their viruses get released into the atmosphere, and people who are alive pick it up and they have to take on. So we're taking on the world's stresses. Those on the JJ mentality, when you finally get off the J juice, you will be taking on the stress of your environment. and you have to keep feeding. Okay? And so this gives me an idea that it's going to be a long ass road evolving to this new world order. And it's going to be quite painful for a lot of people. Like, very painful. Like it was way back when they wrote the Bible and they said, oh gosh, Revelations, the end times. Yes, there's a cycle when there's a cycle on Earth of evolution, of new prototypes, new ideas, old ideas, cleaning the slate again, starting over again. We don't know how many times. I mean, we hear about that there were computers and types and electric type of stuff even in the ancient world. So again, nothing is new under the sun. Are we going to be human civilization that's going to finally be okay? We're going to stay this way. Yes, 6.5 billion people are going to be gone, but will the 500 million people remember and be the ones not to be recycled again and be like, whoa, we have now petrified people? You know, so how is it that we see these petrified people? Because we see it, and we don't, there's nobody alive from way back when, because we keep dying and reproducing. Now, is there going to be even a portion of the 500 million people in the Georgia Guidestones that have been around since the kickoff of 2020, since 2016 when I first started this protocol? Is there anyone going to be around to say, okay, we've seen the cycles. We know about history. We're seeing the cycle of now of another terraforming, you know, biologically and geologically, and live to tell about it and still stay with the evolution. I mean, that's the thing, is I want all of us in the Digit mentality to be around when there is 500 million people. But that's 6.5 billion people we have to go through to get to that point. When will it be? Will it be in 2030? Will it be in 2050? Will it be in the year 3000? I don't know. But I'm going to freaking fight to stay alive. And I want to give you guys all the opportunity, because I need those of you that know about me and know about the JJ mentality to share in this, and then pass this to your friends and family, because we need people to allow this to germinate and span the globe. Some people will get it, others will not. Hey, sugar. And so, yeah, so the Earth is immortal. So as long as the sun stays shining, so as long as our galaxy doesn't get destroyed by other galaxies that have nefarious purposes. But we know about aliens. We know about all that stuff. We know there's higher life forms out there that have advised, you know, high levels of government. We know. I mean, it's not that difficult to realize that nobody just knows stuff. We were taught. Okay? And the truth and facts are slowly coming out. And everyone has a choice to entertain whatever they want in their world. And so some cultures are very destructive. Actually, all cultures are very destructive, but some are probably more so than others. And so be aware of that. And try not to fall into the traditions and fall into all the brainwashing. Because human suffering is when you're at a deficit and you're looking for someone to fill in the gaps. And when they're not filling in the gaps, then you lash out, because you expect those around you that you are depending on to make you happy, to give you what you think you need. That's the crux of human suffering. It is the fact that the extreme desire to belong and the expectation someone else is going to fulfill your needs. And when they don't, or when your expectation is unmet for whatever reason, this is why people pass away from suffering. Because they never faced the suffering and fed themselves and made themselves stand on their own 2 feet. They were always expecting somebody else to pick up whatever and to be the one to provide them with the security, the feeling of this, feeling of that. And so that's why 7 billion people on this planet are suffering because we're all components of a larger whole, and we were never taught to figure out how to be the other part of us that is missing, because everybody on this planet is at a deficit. Everybody is a fraction of the whole. And when you're a fraction of the whole, you're always looking for your better half, your better fraction over here, always looking to be part of groups, always looking to be part of factions, religions, politics, scientific dogmas. And so, yeah, there's suffering because you don't even know yourself, much less you know the other person who you think is going to fulfill whatever it is that is missing within you. And so that's the question, is wanting to belong, right? Because you're coming from a deficit. So if you're mad at your significant other, you're mad at the government, if you're mad at whatever, it's because you haven't fulfilled your own potential. You're always looking for the government, your husband, your wife, your sister, your brother, your kids, your dog, your neighbors, your religious leaders to be the one to fill in the gaps, and they can't because they haven't filled in their own freaking gaps. And so while hanging out with a bunch of people is temporarily okay, people still suffer because that's not enough. Why is it not enough? Because you're still not a whole person. And a whole person finally stops complaining, stops suffering. And well, they don't sort of stop suffering, but it's more of like they understand how to take care of their own suffering and fulfill their own needs. And that's the magic. And that's, oh my God, out of all of that, that's holy shit. So that's what human suffering is. Not only an extreme desire to belong, because it's the reason why is because they're at a deficit. And so when they go out and hang out with a bunch of people, or they go and depend upon their husband or their wife or their sister or their brother or whatever, or they go to church or synagogue, they're still not satisfied. And so then they distract themselves with hormone releases, or they get lost in the drugs and the alcohol, which is the same thing. Or they're just completely like taking on the saint. I'm going to be a saint, and I'm going to be the all-sacrificing grandmother, all-sacrificing mother, the all-sacrificing father, the all-sacrificing friend. And that's how I'm going to assuage my suffering, is to be that for somebody else, to the point of where you actually sacrifice yourself. And then when people don't give back what you're giving to them, then you're like, then that's where people also get upset. And so then you take yourself out of the game because you don't want to give so much, because then you're not getting so much in return, and because they can't give you what you want. And so then when you take yourself out of that, then you start providing for yourself. And then you want a mature relationship with people who are of like minds, who are whole people, or you're in a symbiotic relationship that both people are getting their needs met, and it is a quid pro quo contract. Then okay, things can be a little bit different. But most people don't work from that platform. Most people work from a major deficit, and they're suffering, and they're glomming on to exercise routines, to drugs, to group functions, group mentality, activism. I mean, you see it out there, people rioting and protesting and picketing. That's the human suffering. When people are at a deficit, and then they go and blame someone out there for not fulfilling their needs, or thinking that they're being harmed. So out of all that, that's the main takeaway. Out of all that, that's the main takeaway, is expounding upon what I already said. The crux of human suffering is the extreme desire to belong because you became at a deficit. But when you attach yourself to groups, thinking it's going to assuage your suffering, if anything, it accelerates it. Because then you start comparing yourself to other people. You're depending upon these other people, and they're not fulfilling your needs. And then it becomes a cycle. And then you also give so much of yourself that you sacrifice yourself. And it's a crazy loop. It's a crazy everything. It's a crazy cycle. And so I finally took myself out of that cycle. I have no desire to belong to any group. If I hang out with people, it's because they enjoy my company and I enjoy their company. I'm prepared to deal with all the different viruses that I will be exposed to. and I'm okay with going through that. And so a lot of ways they must feel special if I hang out with them, because I'm willing to take on their viruses and then recover from the evolution at home. And so that's not going to happen too often, because that's a lot of evolution, because some people have a lot more evolution that they're releasing than other people. So, Jesus. All right. Thank you. Appreciate you guys listening, even if it's just 2 of you. and you guys have a good day. All right. Bye.